This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Respectonomics brings you the Living Dignity series. Living Dignity is its centerpiece is restoring respect or faith in individual human dignity. My name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I am your voice of Respectonomics. I'm your year of Respectonomics, meaning I'd love to hear back from you. I need your opinions and your critiques and so on. Also, to recommend that this information has sufficient depth and scope that it is available to be brought to you personally if you have meetings, presentations, workshops, and the equivalent. We can do it either remotely, as indeed this is taking place, or we can do it in person where you would have me presenting at your workshop or your whatever the event would be. We think that living dignity is one of the probably the most important part of the Respectonomics rollout. We have some 250 podcasts under our belt, and we are going to be emphasizing this whole concept of individual dignity. We recognize that in this business of dignity, there are 4 sections that we are working with. We are enabling individuals to recognize their own dignity, their own worth. We have talked about reviving human identity. And thirdly, the one we're going to talk about today is understanding the triad of a human being. And lastly, number 4, we're going to be talking about honoring fairness. The third one today, honoring the triad of a human being. Now, this may sound like a strange word, triad. Most people say, what is a triad? And you can sort of think of it like a 3-pronged spear. You can think of it as a triangle with 3 different points. You can think of a 3-legged stool. But whatever you want to think about that has the number 3 in it, it in fact encompasses, it embraces, it identifies the very nature of the human being. The human being is made up of 3 parts. And all we're saying at the moment is to acknowledge those 3 parts. We can do different things with it. When you have an acknowledgement, you can say, I acknowledge the power of my car or the power of my thermostat, whatever it is. But acknowledgement is the starting gate to saying what actions one would want to take and what one wants to pursue. The human being is made up of these 3 parts, and we're going to be acknowledging the parts. We have the body, which is the physicality of the human being. It's the shell. It's the part that contains all the moving parts. It is, in fact, in computer language, it is your hardware. It is the part that, when you look at your screen or you look at your keyboard, you look at I call it the lunchbox, which is a way of saying, I think it's your CPU, your processor. But whatever you want to call all these things, these are the physicalities of your computer. These are the hardware. That is the human body. Then we have the human mind. Now, the mind is the software. You are using your software now, and I'm using my software now because we're having this conversation, albeit remotely, albeit with a slight emphasis on me doing the talking and you doing the listening, which I would really rather we didn't do. I'd rather be engaging in a proper conversation where we communicate an idea to one another. That said, this arrangement is that my software is the part that is processing ideas, putting them forward, and you process them through your own software, through your own intellect and your own experiences and so on, and you come out with how you perceive what I am saying and whether you take it and how you use it and so on. So we've got the body and the mind. And the third part is the one that is the most difficult, almost can be uncomfortable to talk about, which is a little strange. Think of the computer for a minute. We've talked about the hardware. We've got the software, which is this process of translating information one to another. But we also have operating systems. Apple has an operating system. PC has an operating system. And it would be very, very wonderful if those systems were, in fact, condensed into one. It's not going to happen. In the meantime, though, what we want to understand, what we want to acknowledge is this human dimension, the triad, if you will. We know the body, we know the mind, they're easily talked about and they're everyday subjects. But when we talk about the human spirit or the human soul, the human character, the human ability to reason or to reflect one's conscience, there's sort of, you'd almost call them soft underbellies. They're very difficult to define. But here's one of the truths about this third element of the triad. This third element, this part, is in fact, it is invincible, it is yours. No one else can get into it. People can get into your mind, people can get into your body. They cannot get into this inner being of yours. Call the inner being whatever you want. I'm going to call it the soul because we talk about the corporate soul, the political soul, we talk about the soul of a country, we talk about he's a good soul, she's a good soul, he's an old soul, she's an old soul. We say that word. So we're going to use the word soul to discover, to reveal to one another this part of ourselves that is hidden, but in actual fact is incredibly evident because it's from that inner part that our externality becomes more obvious, our thinking process and so on. I want you to think about a bicycle for a minute. I want you to imagine you buy a fantastic bicycle made of titanium and with disc brakes and GPS attachments, all that kind of stuff. Just unbelievable. And you have all this, and as you're leaving the bicycle store that you've just bought this incredibly expensive bicycle for thousands of dollars, as you're leaving the store, the salesperson says, "Oh, by the way, I meant to mention, you don't get a chain." Now just think about this for a minute. A most beautiful bicycle with all its capacity doesn't have a chain. It won't work. It won't go anywhere. Can you imagine getting onto the bicycle, pedaling furiously, number one, going nowhere, secondly, losing your balance, and thirdly, getting exhausted? And that's what happens when that inner being isn't properly brought into the human equation. We need to bring the bicycle chain, this linkage, into our lives. We have it through, we know about the body, we know about the mind, and we know now that there's a conscience, a soul, we're going to call it the soul that is the contiguous, the consistency of our humanity. It is absolutely vital. But when I look at my body, there are more reports, more ideas, more anything you want on social media and any publication, go to Encyclopedia Britannica, anywhere you want. And it will talk about how the body needs to be fed, how the body needs to be sheltered, how the body needs to be understood, how we need to protect the body. And we go on and on and on with all of these things that the body needs. We know that the body needs water and oxygen. We know it needs shelter. We know it needs people. You can't do everything on your own. We know all these things. The mind. We talk about what we need to do. We hear a great deal these days about mental health and the need for the mind to be restored, the reason for the mind to be respected, the reason for people to communicate well with another, the reason for getting people off the screen. We're talking more and more and more about getting young people away from the screen. Probably true for all of us. But the truth of the matter is the mind is talked and talked and talked about with numerous professions to explain it and discuss it and so on, whether it's in therapy or whether it's in psychiatry, whatever it would be, but it's all there. So we've got the human body and the human mind with all this incredible extent of coverage. What we want to look at is the coverage that's available to talk about the human soul. And what we want to understand is this, that the human soul exists on one single human premise, which is the freedom of choice. One of the most important things Respectonomics can do is to recognize freedom of choice. That freedom of choice is something that we honor. So when we look at our soul, we do not have to say to one another, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. But what we can do is create in each and every one of us an awareness of this soul. So much of what we do nowadays sounds like it's soulless. It sounds like it's sterile. Artificial intelligence is a brilliant example of something that is ultimately, intellectually, definitively, it has no soul. It can't. The soul belongs to the human being, and we should treasure that as being a resource that we have that is unique to us. And not only should we be taking care of it and loving it and admiring it, but treating it as our crown jewel. And if we have this, when we have this soul, then what we need to do is to recognize its incredible qualities, its incredible capacity, its way of imagining, its way of grasping new ideas, its way of reaching into the past and reaching into the future and reaching into our own inner being. It is the most brilliant compass that anybody could ever have invented. And it's a compass that belongs to you and me. The first thing we have to do is to be aware of it. I mean, it'd be a little like saying, I'm lost, and you have a compass in your pocket. The first thing somebody would say was, if you pulled the compass out of your pocket and looked at it, you might be able to see A, where you are, and B, where you want to get to. And the soul is the same. The soul is your compass, it's my compass, and it is the part that gives us that sense of direction, the sense of continuity, the sense of it's worth it, that it really is. So many of us today feel exhausted. Our bodies are being strained and pulled around in so many different directions. Our minds are being suffused with media and television and screens and voices and advertisements. And of course, not to mention the calls on one's life, through family and community and work and so on. It's just never ending. But your soul can always be kept separate from that entire arrangement. And it can be the one part that you and I can feed and we can look after. Let's just take a look at this for a moment. Because the more you feed your soul, it's a bit like a reservoir. If you've ever seen a reservoir that's empty, it's a really, really unattractive sight. It's usually full of cracks, it's full of dirt and this kind of thing. It's probably become a receptacle for garbage. It's not a pretty place, an empty reservoir. And you sort of say, oh, I wish that would be refilled again. Well, in our own cases, we can refill our souls. And each and every person has that freedom to identify, not only identify their soul, but to identify the feedstock that is necessary for it and suits it. So I'm not going to get into that, but I am going to get into recognizing the soul for its incredible values and allowing us to be able to explore it and to be able to feed it and to give it nutrition. But here's the thing about a reservoir. A reservoir stores water, doesn't it? And we're talking here about reserving, if you will, the qualities that are available to our soul. We're going to feed it. But the amount that we feed our soul is only useful to the extent that, just like a reservoir, it can go out. There's no point having a reservoir that's full of water and doesn't actually go anywhere. The principle of a reservoir is not only to contain water, but to be refilled. Refilling depends on letting it out. So what we need to do is to let the contents of our soul go out. And as we do that, then it enables our soul to be refilled. What an incredible combination, that the more I let out, the more I fill up. And the more I fill up, the more I have to give out. So even just being aware of one's soul, being aware of how we feed it, that's your personal decision. But feeding your soul then allows you to be the reservoir that allows this flow of, call it goodness, but the flow of all these brilliant qualities, these jewels, to be spread around. And as you do that, and here's the incredible, it's almost like a miracle in itself, that as my human soul feeds into your human soul, something remarkable happens. We've already discovered that if I feed your human soul, my human soul gets refilled. That's pretty amazing. But here's another part, that as I refill your human soul and enable you to see that, and I reach out to you, and I believe in the concept of the soul to the soul. We talk about matching things. Have you ever seen iPhones, how they transfer information from one to another? You get a new iPhone and they stick the two side by side and one flows to the other. We can do the same thing. We can allow one soul to feed into the other soul. And here is the most remarkable truth. We can have all kinds of different opinions. We can have hostile opinions. We can have friendly opinions. We can have divergent opinions. We can have intellect. We can have bodies. We can have everything that is different and maybe separates one from another. We can do that. But when you allow soul to address soul, when you look at a soul as being symbiotic, living with another soul, try it. Next time you're in front of somebody, and this is one of the key points, that you physically draw alongside somebody. I cannot physically draw alongside you remotely. I can draw alongside you in thought and spirit, but I can't actually do it physically. But I can when I meet with you. And that's one of the great advantages of human to human, that humans are designed to be with humans. That's where we get the word community from. We come together. We are designed to be gregarious. We're designed to be flocks. We're designed to work together. Can you imagine a world where people said, I don't need anybody? Of course you do. Of course we do. We need people. So when we allow one person to go with another, but we do it through the exigency, through the effectiveness of the soul, and we allow one soul to reach to the other, have a tryout on this because something very remarkable happens. Not only do we get the filling of the spirit and the soul of oneself and of the other person and all the benefits attributable to that, but there's another thing that happens. Whatever those divergent opinions are, they don't matter. They disappear. We can talk about them if we're being abused or there's a sense of parasitism or something like that. Of course, those need to be dealt with. But at the very point when a soul is allowed and encouraged and willed to be in contact, to be contiguous, to be reaching into the soul of another, that is when we find this symbiosis, this gathering together. And when we talk about the gathering together of one human being with another, we are talking about unity. And unity of purpose is the one part that when we exhibit unity of person, we then stand the whole possibility of unity of community. By the way, they're two separate words. Community comes from the meaning to fortify one another. Unity is a oneness. It is one. It's from the Latin unus. And when we become one, we become extremely strong. I'll close on one point. If you take 3 2x4s, body, mind, and spirit, try this. You take your body, mind, and spirit. If you take those 3 2x4s, they will support a certain amount of weight. You see that on a construction site. If you take those 3, though, together, the body and the mind and the spirit, you take those 3 and you nail them together, they will support 17 times the weight of what happens to those 2x4s if they're separated out. So by binding together, we find this incredible strength. And here is my gauntlet for the day from Respectonomics, right from the heart of everything we do. If it is true that this 3 becomes so powerful, what happens when we take that 2x4 of 3s and allow it to be linked and bound together with another 3 2x4s? The strength is extraordinary, and it is in that strength that we can therefore ride out the storms. Not only ride out the storms, that sounds almost negative. We can do something that's even bigger and better. We can coordinate in a manner that will give us new opportunities, fresh ideas, fresh adventures. The adventures may be new discoveries. They may be the opportunity just to be able to rest in each other's soul, because rest is so valuable. And when we allow soul to soul, we create this opportunity for rest, opportunity for opportunity, and an opportunity that we will come out with some remarkable inventions. All because all we did was we allowed one soul to breathe and reach into, to be contiguous to another soul. That is our human dimension. That is our human gift. It is our human miracle. And it is on that that I rest my case. It's Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, and I thank you so much for listening and look forward to your critiques and your comments. Jeremy at respectonomics.com.